Welcome, Manny Collins here for Brutus Monroe. Today we're going to create this mermaid slimline card. Let's go to products I used to create this card. The Underwater Friends stamp set. This has a variety of images, some mermaids, some fish, shark, shell, seaweed, sand dollar, a little hermit crab, an extra little bow, and 4 sentiments. So we're going to use the mermaid, the seaweed, the shell, and sand dollar. And this set has a coordinating die set that you can purchase separately. I have mine that I got because I'm on the design team. Alright, so I have some Aqua Pigments we're going to be using today. Neon blue, neon purple, blue green, peach, brown, gilded, and pearl. I pulled out the yellow green, I do not use it. The pearl and the gilded, I'll use those towards the end. I have my stick and stamp mat, and on that I have some Strathmore watercolor cardstock. I have my pigment palette ready to go, some water brush and water. So I stamped my images and colored them off screen. My mermaid, I stamped her tail once again onto some shimmery specialty paper that I will adhere that to her. I colored my seaweed, my sand dollar, and my shell. I have a small piece of die cut Not Your Mama's cardstock for our sentiment. I have my card base, which is made from Not Your Mama's cardstock, and some glitter, purple glitter cardstock that we will use as a layering piece. So let's go ahead and get started. We're going to start by placing a little drop or two of our Aqua Pigments onto our pigment palette. We're going to start with neon purple, we'll move on to neon blue, and then we'll put a little bit of blue green, and then brown and peach. And I'm just putting them in those circles. They have colors around them. You could use them to signify the colors you're using, but I'm just going to go ahead and just use them as holding spots, not really keeping track of any of the colors. Alright, so I'm going to start with a wet on wet technique. So that means I'm wetting my brush and I'm applying that straight to my watercolor paper, and then I'll pick up the pigment and spread it across the bottom. Now, Aqua Pigments are basically watercolor in liquid form. So I start out with the brown and then I move on to the peach. So I'm creating the bottom of our ocean. I'm going to heat set this so that I can continue working without our colors keep blending. So now I'm going to again apply water to my watercolor cardstock, and now I'm going to blend on the neon purple in the center. And as you can see, it's messy, but it's underwater, so I'm creating the movement of water. So it doesn't have to be perfect. Just let this flow, as we would say here. And then I'm going to put that neon blue just on either side of our purple. And then I'm going to work in the blue-green from the edges. And then I'll just lightly swoosh it across the purple. I'm going to add a little bit more of the blue, green, and purple to my palette. And I want to just highlight the purple just in the center. I'm going to go ahead and dry my cardstock because I don't want this to be so saturated that the cardstock takes forever to dry also. And when you dry the Aqua Pigments in between, it lets you layer the colors on and amplify those. So I'm going to keep getting that to how I want it. I'm going to add just a little bit more of our peach down here. It got a little muddled. So I'm going to go ahead and blend that in. Once we have our purple blended in, a little bit more of our blue-green. Just want to darken those edges a bit more. Alright, so I get that nice wash all the way down. I want to put a little more of that peach down here because we're losing it. I pick it up a little bit with my microfiber cloth just because I had too many blotchy areas. So now we have our panel all set. I'm going to heat set this a bit. It's quite wet. Doesn't take very long to dry, which is good. And I just keep moving, adding anything, swishing anything I need to swish around. Right, so I heat set it for most of it. So I'm going to go ahead and dry it some more. Then I'll set it to the side for a bit. While that's finishing off, because I don't want it to curl too much. And I'm going to die cut this to be just smaller than my purple cardstock that I have, my glitter cardstock. Alright, so now that my panel's basically dry, I'm going to come in with the Gilded and the Pearl. And I'm using a fine detail brush. I'm concentrating most of the Gilded towards the bottom, towards our sand. I have a little bit splashing up, but not a lot. And then the Pearl, I'm just placing that more towards the top area where the water would be. So the bottom is our sand, the blue purpley area is our water, our ocean water. Okay, so once I get that all going, I'll set that to the side to let those little splatters dry. I'm going to take what's left of that Gilded and I'm going to apply it to our mermaid. She has these little starfish in her hair, along with some coral. I'm going to just color in all the little stars with the Gilded, so it's nice gold color there. And it goes pretty quick. I mean, they're tiny. I have a small brush and just filling it in. So there you have it. Now she has some nice shine to her. I'm going to quickly clean off my area here, move my palette out of the way, wipe down the surface because I have splatter everywhere. So now we're going to add here her shimmery tail. Again, I stamped this with some Raven Detail ink onto shimmery specialty paper, and then I fussy cut it. So I'm going to adhere this shimmery tail to her body, and I put the liquid adhesive, which is I'm using Barely Art glue, on the actual cardstock version of the mermaid, not on the tail, because this paper is so thin. I was worried that it would seep through, so it's easier to place it onto our mermaid itself. Once I place her tail in place, I just push down her little hand, because I cut around her hand so that it would layer properly. I'm going to put some foam adhesive on the back of her here and have her ready to go for when we're set to create our card. So I'm just going to fill her back here up with some foam tabs, and I'll do the same to our seashell and our sand dollar. Just putting a few foam tabs here. And there we go. And I just cut 1 in half for her little arm. Don't forget, I don't want to forget that. Give her a nice even coverage. So now we're going to go ahead. That's it. So now I have some on my sand dollar and my seashell as well. So now we're going to go ahead and stamp our sentiment. Our sentiment reads, "Hope your day makes a splash." I have a clean stick and stamp mat that I use in my stamp platform. This is perfect for holding all those little pieces that you've already die cut that you want to put your sentiment onto. So I'm going to get my sentiment lined up here, and then I'll grab my Raven Detail ink and stamp our sentiment on here. I'll put my magnets to hold my mat down. It was just misaligned a bit, so that's much better. I can get it all lined up. So grab my Raven Detail ink. I'm going to give that some nice... I'll stamp this twice because this word splash is a filled in image. Or word. I shouldn't say image, is a word. So I want it to be nice and dark. There we go. So I'll remove my magnets, remove my stick and stamp mat, give it a curl, and that sentiment just pops right off. Put my cover on it, and I'll move everything out of our way. So my panel's a little bit warped. I'm going to cut this, and I'm going to adhere it to our glitter cardstock. I make sure that I focus mostly on that purple area in the center when I trimmed it down to size. So I'm putting some Barely Art glue on the back of this watercolor panel, which I'm going to use that to adhere it to our glitter cardstock. I'm doing this because I want to make sure it's centered and it gets on there nice and smooth. So I'm going to flip it over onto my card base just to smooth it all out. Just in case I have anything on my hands, I do not want to put that on my panel. Now I'm going to take this card front panel and adhere it to our card base. I'm again using some Barely Art glue to do so. Once I have that all straight and flattened out, we can build our card. Alright, so there you have that all set. I'm going to start by adhering our seaweed sea kelp, I have no idea, I'm going to call it seaweed, to the base of our card here. So I'm going to put the taller one right here to the left, the little bit wider one here to the right. Just there, and then I'm going to overlap our seashell and our sand dollar on top of our seaweeds here, or sea kelps. So our little seashell, our sand dollar, and like I said, these I have popped up on some foam adhesive. Get those on there, and then our mermaid, we're going to have her go about halfway up. Just remove all the backing of our foam adhesive, and then I'll place her there. And the shimmering cardstock on, oh, it's actually shimmering specialty paper, it's actually paper, on her tail is so much fun. So we're going to place her right about there. And she has that beautiful gilded in her hair, it's beautiful. So for our sentiment, we're going to go ahead and add some foam adhesive on the back of that. I'm going to grab some strips here. And I'm sorry for the glare from my little tray, I didn't realize it was, the lights were reflecting in it. Alright, so I got my foam strips on there. I'm going to remove the backing and adhere that right here to the top of the left. Make sure it's straight. So now I'm going to add some finishing touches. I mean, you can leave it like this, but I wanted to add a little bit more finishing touches. So I brought in some gems from my stash. I have some purple ones and blue ones. I thought of using those other ones that are like black. It's actually like an opalescent black, and it picks up different colors. It's actually called mermaid stones, but they just look more black on screen. So I went with the blues and the purple stones. So I put one near her by her bubbles, one by the sentiment, and then 3 I put as a cluster towards the bottom with near our seashells and seaweed. And now our card is complete. So I'm going to move it more into screen so you can see. I love the shimmer of the cardstock and all that splatter from the pearl and gilded. We have some nice dimension with the foam there and all the layers. That watercolor background came out like I was hoping. So again, we use the Underwater Friends stamp and dies. We use Aqua Pigments in blue green, peach, brown, neon purple, neon blue, some gilded for splatter and her crown, and pearl for some splatter, and Raven Detail ink for our images and sentiment. Like always, I'll have everything in the description box below for you with links to our shop. Thank you for being here, and I hope you found some inspiration.